Zara, the princess of the Vora, stood tall and proud in the center of the grand meeting hall. Her people, known for their strength and warrior spirit, had no time for the delicate, sentimental things that other species enjoyed. They respected power, and Zara was the living example of it. With a reputation that spread across galaxies, she had earned her place as a powerful leader. It was during a peace conference on the neutral planet of Talis that she first met Lucas, a human diplomat. Humans were known for their intelligence, creativity, and adaptability, but Zara didn't hold them in high regard. She saw them as soft, too gentle, and not fit for the harsh realities of the galaxy. The conference hall was full of alien leaders, all exchanging speeches and promises of peace. Zara stood at the front, her posture rigid, her eyes scanning the crowd. As she spoke with other leaders, Lucas walked into the room. He was tall, but not imposing. His eyes were kind, his face calm, and his demeanor made him appear unbothered by the grandness of the situation. He wasn't here to boast or make himself known. Instead, he quietly observed, waiting for the right moment to speak. When the discussions paused, Zara's sharp eyes locked onto Lucas. He met her gaze and gave a small nod. She studied him for a moment before letting out a soft, amused chuckle. "A human diplomat," she said aloud. "I have yet to meet one who has impressed me." Her voice carried throughout the room, and a few alien leaders chuckled in agreement. Zara's laughter echoed, full of pride. Lucas smiled at her response, not offended. He had heard rumors about the alien princess, how she believed strength and power were the only things that mattered. But Lucas was different from the others. He was here for peace, and he believed that true strength was found in understanding, not just battle. As the conference continued, Lucas found himself drawn to Zara. He saw how the other leaders respected her, how they listened when she spoke. There was an undeniable strength in her, but it was also clear that she had little interest in the more personal aspects of life. He noticed how she ignored the quieter, more affectionate gestures that many others exchanged. Later that evening, after the discussions had ended, Lucas found himself alone in the garden outside the meeting hall. He stood by a fountain, admiring the stars in the sky. The soft sound of water trickling filled the air. It was then that he heard the soft footsteps behind him. He turned to see Zara approaching, her gaze still intense but somehow softer in the quiet of the night. She had changed out of her formal attire and into something more comfortable, though her strength still radiated from her every step. "You're not much for socializing, are you?" Zara asked, her voice gentle but inquisitive. "I prefer real conversations over speeches," Lucas replied with a smile. Zara raised an eyebrow. "You humans are strange. You avoid showing your true strength. Why?" She seemed genuinely curious, her words not mocking but interested. Lucas chuckled. "We show our strength in different ways. Sometimes it's through kindness, understanding, or even through something simple, like a touch." Zara tilted her head slightly, confused. "What do you mean, a touch?" Lucas shrugged. "Well, humans express affection differently than your people. For example, we kiss." Zara's eyes narrowed, and she let out a sharp laugh. "Kiss? We don't kiss. It's a sign of weakness, not strength." Lucas didn't respond immediately, simply smiled, watching her carefully. "Maybe it's not weakness, Zara. Maybe it's just a different kind of strength." Zara looked at him as if she had never considered such a thing. "You're telling me that humans kiss each other? It's for affection?" He nodded. "Yes, it's how we show we care about someone. Kiss can be an expression of love, trust, or even respect." Zara shook her head, still skeptical. "It sounds foolish. Your people are soft." "What good is something like that in battle?" Lucas stepped closer, his voice calm and steady. "It's not just about battle. It's about connection, about building bonds with others. It's something that strengthens us in ways that weapons can't." Zara frowned, still unable to grasp the idea. She had been raised to see everything in terms of power and victory. She had never considered that affection could be a form of strength. To her it seemed weak and unnecessary. But Lucas wasn't giving up. He smiled warmly, a little teasing. No, Zara, you don't have to believe me. But I think you'd be surprised by what a simple kiss can do. Maybe you should try it. Zara laughed again, though this time there was something different in her tone. It wasn't mocking, but more a mixture of curiosity and defiance. Dry. It with you? Lucas nodded. If you want. I'm sure you'd be impressed by how much it means. Zara paused for a long moment, considering his words. She wasn't used to backing down, but something in her made her want to understand. Could something so simple, so human, truly be as powerful as he said? She crossed her arms, standing tall, and with a smirk she spoke. You really think a kiss would change my mind? Lucas met her gaze, his smile unwavering. I think you might find it more interesting than you expect. Zara stood there for a moment, her eyes studying him, and for the first time, she wondered if maybe Lucas was right. Maybe there was more to humans than she had ever thought. Maybe there was something to this idea of connection that she had dismissed as weakness. Well, then, Zara said, her voice now more serious, maybe you should show me human, but don't think this means I'll start liking it. Lucas simply smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of their strange journey. Neither of them knew it yet, but something was about to change for both of them. The following evening, Zara found herself restless. After the strange conversation with Lucas, her mind kept returning to one thing, the idea of kissing. She had never thought much about it before. In her world, physical strength and emotional control were far more important than gestures of affection. Kissing seemed like something weak, something humans did to show softness. But there was something about the way Lucas spoke that made her wonder. Could something as simple as a kiss really have the power he claimed? Zara wasn't sure, but her curiosity was growing. She had to see it for herself. As the sun began to set, the evening's peace conference came to an end. Zara walked through the halls, her mind heavy with thoughts of Lucas and his strange ideas. The air was cool, and the stars above twinkled like scattered jewels. She stepped outside into the garden, seeking some quiet to clear her mind. It wasn't long before she spotted Lucas. He was leaning against the stone wall, looking up at the sky, his hands tucked in his pockets. There was a calmness about him that Zara couldn't quite explain. Despite all her training as a warrior, Zara realized she had never met anyone like him. Humans, in her mind, were weak. But there was something different about Lucas. He was strong in a way she hadn't understood until now. Zara approached him, her footsteps silent on the soft grass. Lucas heard her coming and turned, his expression warm as always. Princess Zara, he said with a small bow, his voice light and respectful. You don't need to be so formal, she replied, a hint of a smile playing at the corner of her lips. Call me Zara, Lucas chuckled softly, nodding. Zara, you're not the first alien princess I've met, but I have to admit, you're certainly the most interesting. Zara raised an eyebrow. Interesting. I thought you'd find me intimidating. Maybe at first, Lucas said, his smile widening. But I've learned that strength doesn't always come from muscle or weapons. Sometimes it's about understanding each other. Zara crossed her arms, still skeptical. You really think so? I do, he replied, his eyes meeting hers. Strength comes in many forms. You just have to be open to them. Zara stared at him, the weight of his words settling in. Was that what she lacked? Was she so focused on being strong in one way that she overlooked other forms of power? She couldn't answer him. She just stood there, lost in her own thoughts. After a long silence, Lucas spoke again, breaking the tension. So are you still curious about the kiss? His voice was light, teasing, but there was something in his eyes that said he wasn't joking. Shara hesitated. Her pride told her to refuse. It told her that showing interest in something like a kiss would be weak. But something else, the part of her that was still human, even if she didn't want to admit it, wanted to know. I'm still not sure I believe it's as powerful as you say, she said, her voice steady but uncertain. Lucas smiled, a knowing look in his eyes. Well, how about this? Let's make a deal. If you let me show you, and you still think it's meaningless afterward, then I'll drop the subject. But if you find it has some worth, then you'll start considering that there's more to strength than you think. Zara frowned. Deal was tempting, but it also felt like a challenge to her pride. But perhaps that was the point. Maybe Lucas wanted to show her something beyond her pride, beyond her cold strength. She nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving his. "All right, human, show me what you claim to be so powerful." Lucas stepped closer, his hands still at his sides. He wasn't in any hurry, his movements calm and unhurried. Zara noticed that there was no fear in his eyes, no hesitation. Everything she had heard about humans, here he was, offering something that seemed so simple, yet so complex at the same time. "I've never kissed anyone like this before," Lucas said quietly, his voice soft. "But I think it's about sharing something that's real, something honest." Zara didn't speak. She stood still, watching him as he gently closed the gap between them. Her heart began to race, her instincts warning her to back away, too. Keep her distance, but she didn't move. There was something in her that wanted to understand. Lucas reached out slowly, almost as if asking for permission. His hand hovered in the air, inches from her cheek. Zara held her breath, not sure what would happen next. After a moment that felt like eternity, she nodded, giving him silent approval. Lucas placed his hand on her cheek gently, his touch surprisingly warm. He leaned in slowly, making sure she was comfortable with every movement. Zara's heart pounded in her chest, and for the first time, she felt something stir inside her that wasn't pride or fear. It was a soft warmth, something unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. When their lips met, Zara was caught off guard. Just a kiss wasn't what she had expected. It wasn't wild or passionate, but something calm and tender. It was different from the physical strength she was used to, but it was powerful in its own way. She could feel the sincerity in Lucas's touch, and it made her chest tighten in a way she hadn't anticipated. For a moment, the world around them seemed to disappear. There was no grand meeting, no alien princess and human diplomat. There was just the simple act of connection, of two people sharing something real. When they pulled apart, Zara was breathless. She blinked a few times, not sure what to say. Her mind was racing, trying to understand what had just happened. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't a loss of power. Instead, it had felt like a moment of truth. Lucas looked at her with a soft smile. "So, what do you think?" Zara swallowed, still processing the strange emotions inside her. For a moment, she said nothing. But then she spoke, her voice quieter than before. "Never thought something so simple could feel so strong." Lucas nodded. "That's the thing. Sometimes strength doesn't come from fighting. Sometimes it comes from showing someone you care." Zara turned her gaze to the stars above, her mind buzzing with thoughts she hadn't had before. Could it be true? Could something so small, something so simple, have the kind of power Lucas said it did? She wasn't sure yet. But for the first time, she was willing to find out. The night air around the garden felt cooler now, as the last traces of daylight faded away and the stars twinkled brightly above. Zara stood motionless for a moment, processing what had just happened. She had never been so unsettled in her life. The kiss, though brief, left her with a strange feeling that she couldn't quite explain. It wasn't weakness, far from it. It was a new kind of strength, one that seemed so different from everything she had been taught. Lucas, standing a few feet away, gave her the space she needed. He was calm, watching her carefully, as if he knew she was sorting through her thoughts. He didn't push her to say anything, just let the silence linger between them. Finally, Zara spoke, her voice quieter than before. "I didn't expect that. I thought it would be just a kiss, but it felt like something else." Lucas gave a small smile, but there was no teasing in his expression. "It's not just about the kiss, Zara. It's about the connection. It's about trusting someone enough to let down your guard, even if just for a moment." Zara crossed, her arms still feeling unsure. "I don't understand. You humans have so many different ways to show affection, to build bonds. Why would a kiss be so important?" Lucas stepped closer, but still kept a respectful distance. "Because in the end, it's the simplest way we have of showing that we care, that we're willing to share something with someone else. It's not about strength or power. It's about understanding, about letting someone else in. Zara looked at him, her mind racing. She had spent her whole life being taught that power was about control, about taking what you wanted and keeping it. But this felt different. It felt like a kind of surrender, but not in a weak way. In a way that made her feel human, vulnerable even. But at the same time, it made her feel more alive than she ever had before. She stared at Lucas for a long moment, as if seeing him in a new light. The human diplomat, the man who had so calmly and confidently shown her this new world of emotions, was no longer just a diplomat. He was someone who had touched something deep inside her, something she had never allowed herself to feel. I've never been able to understand the human need for connection, Zara admitted. For us, it's always been about survival. Strength. There's no room for softness. I know, Lucas said gently, but maybe, just maybe, there's room for both. Strength and softness. You don't have to choose one over the other. Zara's brow furrowed. But what if showing that softness makes me weak? What if it makes me less of a warrior? Lucas shook his head. I don't think it makes you weaker. I think it makes you stronger. It's not easy to be vulnerable. To let someone in? But I've seen warriors who are strong in battle but weak when it comes to trusting others. It's the ones who can do both that are the most powerful. Zara was silent for a long time, her thoughts swirling. She had always prided herself on her ability to control every situation, on her unshakable resolve. She had been taught that showing any emotion, any weakness was dangerous. But what Lucas was saying made her question everything she had believed. Never trusted anyone like that, Zara confessed, her voice softer now. Not even my own people. I've always believed that trust is a weakness. Lucas nodded, understanding in his eyes. I get it. Trusting someone is hard, especially when you've been taught not to, but it's also what makes us human. Trust, we love, we fight for each other. And, in the end, we're stronger because of it. Zara felt a strange tightness in her chest as she considered his words. She had always fought alone, trusting only in her own strength. But was that the only way to be strong? Could there be another way, one that involved trust, love, and connection? I don't know if I'm ready for that, she said. Her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can trust anyone like that. That's okay, Lucas said kindly. You don't have to figure it all out right away. I'm not asking you to change overnight. But maybe, just maybe, you can start with small steps. It's not about giving up your strength. It's about adding something to it. Zara looked away for a moment, her eyes falling to the ground. She felt something stir inside, her something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Could she really open herself up to someone else? Could she let go of the walls she had built around her heart? You've changed my perspective, Zara admitted, her voice steady but thoughtful. I thought I had everything figured out. But now I'm not so sure. Lucas smiled, his expression warm and encouraging. That's all I ask. Just to think about it. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for, but you deserve to have someone to trust. You deserve to let yourself feel things beyond battle and strength. Zara nodded, still unsure, but feeling something inside her begin to shift. Wasn't sure if she was ready to fully embrace this new idea. But she knew one thing for certain. She was willing to try. For the first time, she allowed herself to think that maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than what she had been taught. There was more to strength, more to power, more to connection. As the night grew colder, Zara and Lucas stood together in silence. The stars above them, shimmering like a promise of something new. Zara didn't know what the future would hold. But for the first time in a long time, she was open to the possibility of change, of learning, of growing, and perhaps one day, of trusting someone enough to share the softness Lucas had shown her. For now, though, she simply stood beside him, feeling a warmth she had never expected to feel. The days that followed felt strange to Zara. She was used to the certainty of battle, the discipline of her people, and the unwavering pride of her position. But ever since that night in the garden with Lucas, she found herself wrestling with thoughts and feelings she had never considered before. Her world, once so simple and clear, now seemed filled with questions that she didn't know how to answer. Zara spent more time alone in the quiet corners of the palace, her mind running in circles. She found herself recalling their conversation, the kiss and the warmth that had bloomed in her chest afterward. It wasn't a feeling she was comfortable with. In her world, emotions were a weakness. And yet she couldn't deny that there was something undeniably powerful about what she had experienced. One afternoon, after a long series of meetings and discussions, Zara went for a walk in the palace gardens. She needed space to think, to clear her mind. As she wandered beneath the towering trees and fragrant flowers, she realized just how quiet everything felt. It wasn't the usual quiet of peace, it was the silence of uncertainty. She wasn't used to feeling uncertain. Zara was always in control. But now, as she looked out over the vast gardens, she wondered if she had ever really known what it meant to be connected to someone, to let someone in, to trust them. Could that truly make her stronger, as Lucas had suggested? It wasn't long before she spotted him. Lucas was sitting on a stone bench near the fountain, watching the water ripple gently in the breeze. His posture was relaxed, his eyes focused on the water. But when he saw her approach, he straightened up and gave her a small, knowing smile. "Zara." He greeted her, his voice calm as always. She nodded, still unsure of what to say. Her feet carried her to the bench, but she didn't sit down. Instead, she stood, arms crossed, her eyes scanning the garden as if it held the answers she was seeking. "Are you still thinking about it?" Lucas asked gently, his tone not pressing but filled with curiosity. Zara exhaled slowly, looking down at the ground. "I don't know what to think. Ever since that night, I've been questioning everything I've ever believed. What if trusting others makes me weak?" Lucas didn't respond right away, gave her time to let the words settle. When he spoke, his voice was soft, yet firm, like the steady flow of the fountain nearby. "It doesn't make you weak, Zara. Trusting someone, letting them in, is one of the hardest things to do. It takes courage, not weakness. The strength you've shown in battle and leadership is incredible. But being able to trust someone and let your guard down, that takes a different kind of strength." Zara's eyes flicked up to meet his, her, mind still reeling. "But I've spent my whole life believing that emotions only get in the way, that if I show too much of myself, I'll be vulnerable, and vulnerability is dangerous." "I understand," Lucas said, nodding slowly. "Vulnerability can feel dangerous, but it's also what makes us human. It's what allows us to truly connect with others. It's not about weakness. It's about sharing a piece of yourself, allowing someone else to see who you really are." Zara was silent, absorbing his words. Her thoughts were swirling, but a part of her understood. The part of her that had grown up with the harsh realities of leadership and war was at odds with the new emotions she was experiencing. It wasn't easy for her to accept that there could be strength in something so intangible, something that wasn't physical or in her control. "Tell me," Lucas, Zara said, her voice more uncertain now. "How do I know if I'm ready for this? If I can let someone in without losing everything I've built?" Lucas turned to face her fully, his expression kind and patient. "It's not about letting go of everything you've built. It's about adding something new. Trust and connection don't have to erase your strength. They can only add to it." Zara stood there for a long time, her gaze fixed on Lucas. She didn't know why, but she found herself wanting to believe him. The idea that her emotions didn't have to make her weak was new, strange, but there was something in his eyes that made her feel like it was possible. After a moment, Zara sat down beside him on the bench. She still felt the weight of her position and the pride of her people, but there was something else there now, openness she had never known before. She was still unsure, but she wanted to keep learning. She wanted to understand more about what Lucas had shown her. "I've never known a connection like this before," Zara admitted quietly. "But maybe I'm willing to try. Maybe I can trust you." Lucas smiled softly, his eyes warm. "You don't have to rush. You can take it one step at a time, Zara. No one expects you to change overnight. Just know that, when you're ready. I'll be here. I'm not asking you to do anything you're not ready for." Zara nodded slowly, her heart lightening at his words. There was something different in her now, something shifting inside her. For the first time, she didn't feel the weight of her armor. Instead, she felt ... human. She didn't know where this path would lead, but she was no longer afraid to explore it. As the evening sky deepened and the stars began to sparkle more brightly above, Zara felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Maybe it was the quiet connection she was beginning to form with Lucas. Maybe it was the realization that strength didn't always come from power or control. Maybe it was the simple truth that sometimes allowing yourself to trust was the greatest strength of all. So, Lucas said, breaking the silence, "Would you like to take another walk?" "Promise. No more talk of kisses unless you want to." Zara chuckled softly, feeling the tension in her chest ease. "I think I'm ready to walk with you, without thinking about anything else. Let's just see where this goes." Lucas stood up, offering his hand to her. Zara looked at it for a moment, considering, and then reached out to take it. For the first time, she wasn't afraid to take the next step. She wasn't sure where the path would lead, but she knew one thing for certain. It was the beginning of something new. Something that didn't have to fit into the rigid ideas of strength she had known. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Days turned into weeks, and Zara found herself struggling with something she had never experienced before: change. As much as she wanted to hold on to the strength she had always known, the new feelings that Lucas had awakened within her were hard to ignore. He had shown her a world beyond power and battle, a world where connection and trust were just as important, if not more. And despite her pride, despite the walls she had built around her heart, she felt herself being drawn to it. The palace was quiet one evening. As Zara walked through the halls, her thoughts still unsettled. She couldn't help but reflect on her interactions with Lucas. Their talks, her moments together, felt different, no more meaningful. She had allowed him to see a side of her that she had never shown anyone. But it wasn't just the trust she was learning to give, to open up to someone without fear of losing herself in the process. It was late, and the stars were visible through the open windows of the palace. Zara stood by the balcony, looking out at the night sky, her hands resting on the stone railing. The wind was cool against her skin, and for a moment it felt as though the entire universe was silent, waiting. But Zara wasn't alone for long. She turned as she heard the familiar sound of footsteps approaching. Lucas appeared in the doorway, his usual calm expression in place, though his eyes held a spark of warmth. He didn't speak immediately, but instead walked toward her slowly, as though giving her space to breathe, to think. "Zara," he said gently, "I was hoping to find you. Can we talk?"
Nice.
Zara didn't hesitate this time. She nodded, her heart beating a little faster than usual. It was strange how much her feelings for him had evolved in such a short time. What had once been a curious, distant connection was now something deeper, something more personal. "You've been quiet these past few days," Lucas continued. "I can tell something's been on your mind." Zara looked away for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "I've been thinking about a lot of things," she admitted. "About trust, about connection, and about what it means to be strong." Lucas stepped closer, his gaze steady. "What have you come to realize?" Zara took a deep breath. "I've spent my whole life thinking that strength meant never showing weakness, that it meant standing alone, never depending on anyone. But you've shown me that strength isn't just about power. It's about allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to trust others, to let them in." Lucas smiled softly. "I'm glad you're starting to see that. Vulnerability isn't a weakness, Zara. It's a strength. It takes courage to trust, to open up, especially when you've been taught that you must rely on your own strength alone." Zara met his eyes, her heart racing as she spoke. "I don't know if I'm ready to trust completely, but starting to understand, and I think I want to try." Lucas's expression softened, and he took a small step forward. "Trust isn't something that happens all at once. It's a process. But I'll be here every step of the way, whenever you're ready." Zara felt a strange sense of relief wash over her. She had feared that opening herself up would make her weak, but in that moment, standing with Lucas, she realized that perhaps she had been wrong. Perhaps it was not opening herself up that made her weak, but holding back, building walls to protect herself from emotions she didn't understand. The silence between them stretched for a moment. both of them lost in their thoughts. The night was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the wind and the distant sound of the ocean. Zara's gaze drifted to the stars above, their light flickering in the vastness of the sky. She felt small beneath them, but for the first time, she didn't feel alone. "I've never been able to open up to anyone," Zara said quietly, "but with you, it's different. I can't explain why, but I feel like I'm finally able to let go of some of the things that have held me back." Lucas's voice was soft but filled with understanding. "You don't have to explain it. I'm just glad you're allowing yourself to feel." Zara turned to him then, her eyes searching his face. She could see the kindness there, the patience, and the respect. She had seen strength in him from the beginning, but it wasn't the kind of strength she had once believed in. It was a different kind, one that didn't rely on force or power, but on compassion and understanding. And for the first time, she realized that strength like that was something she could aspire to. "You've changed the way I see the world," Zara said, her voice a little softer now. "I'm not sure I could have understood any of this without you." Lucas stepped closer, his presence comforting. "You've always had that strength in you, Zara. You just had to see it for yourself, and I'm glad I could help you do that." Zara smiled faintly, feeling a warmth spread through her chests. She had always believed that her strength came from her ability to stand apart, to remain unshaken by anything or anyone. But now she was starting to see that true strength came from connection, from the ability to trust, to share, and to be vulnerable without fear. They stood together in silence for a while longer, the only sound being the rustling of the leaves and the distant waves crashing against the shore. Zara didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face it. With Lucas by her side, she felt like she could finally let go of the weight she had carried for so long. When she turned to him again, her expression was more open than it had ever been before. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice full of meaning. Lucas smiled, his eyes warm and sincere. "There's no need to thank me. I'm just glad we're here, together." Zara nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. Time in her life, she didn't feel the need to carry the world alone. She had someone to trust, someone to share her burdens with, and that made all the difference. The days that followed felt different to Zara. The walls she had built around her heart were starting to crumble, piece by piece. Every conversation with Lucas, every moment they spent together, seemed to show her a new way of seeing the world, one that was filled with more than just power and strength. It was about trust, about connection, and about understanding the deeper layers of what it meant to be strong. Zara had never been one to admit weakness, but as she spent more time with Lucas, she found herself questioning everything she had ever believed. She had been raised to think that showing emotions made her vulnerable, that it was a sign of weakness to let anyone see her fears or doubts. But Lucas had shown her something different. He had shown her that true strength came from allowing others in, from sharing your true self without fear of judgment. One afternoon, after a long meeting with the leaders of several planets, Zara found herself in the quiet corner of the palace garden again. The sunlight was soft, casting long shadows on the ground as she walked. She was lost in thought, her mind still racing with the implications of what she had been learning. She wasn't sure if she was ready to let go of everything she had known, but she knew that she couldn't go back to the way things were before. As she sat by the fountain, lost in the rhythm of the water's flow, she felt a presence beside her. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. Lucas had a way of entering a room or a garden without making a sound. She smiled faintly to herself. "Mind if I join you?" Lucas asked, his voice calm as always. Zara nodded, gesturing for him to sit. "I've been thinking a lot," she said quietly, "about everything we've talked about trust." Lucas sat beside her, his eyes thoughtful. "What have you realized?" Zara hesitated for a moment, collecting her thoughts. "I've realized that I've spent my whole life holding back. I've always believed that showing too much emotion, trusting others, would make me weak. But I'm starting to see that. Maybe it's not about hiding everything away, and maybe strength isn't just about control. It's also about being willing to be vulnerable." Lucas nodded, his gaze steady and supportive. "Exactly. It takes courage to open up to someone, to show them who you really are. But when you do, you build a deeper connection. And that connection makes you stronger, not weaker. Zara let his words sink in. She had spent so much time trying to prove herself, to show everyone that she could handle anything. She had never allowed herself to lean on anyone, never allowed herself to feel the power of true connection. And now, with Lucas, she was starting to see that strength wasn't just about standing alone. It was about standing with others, trusting them to have your back when you needed it. I don't know if I'm ready to trust completely, Zara admitted, her voice a little softer than usual, but I'm willing to try. For the first time, I'm willing to let someone in. Lucas's smile was gentle, his eyes kind. You don't have to rush. Trust isn't something you can force. It takes time, and it's different for everyone. But I'll be here whenever you're ready. No pressure. Zara looked at him, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She had never felt so comfortable with anyone before, not even her closest allies. With Lucas, she didn't feel the need to be perfect, to hide every flaw. Once she could simply be herself. And that was something she had never allowed herself to do. You've helped me see things I'd never considered, Zara said quietly. I've always been so focused on strength, on proving that I can handle anything. But now, I see that maybe it's okay to lean on others, to trust them. And maybe that trust will make me even stronger. Lucas reached out, gently resting his hand on hers. The touch was simple, but it felt like a promise. I think you're already stronger than you realize, Zara. And I'm proud of you for being open to change, even when it's hard. Zara's heart fluttered at his words. She had never imagined that she would find someone who could make her feel this way, someone who could challenge her beliefs and help her see a different side of herself. It was a strange, unfamiliar feeling, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was freeing. As they sat together in the garden, Zara began to realize that her journey was only just beginning. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew that, with Lucas by her side, she could face whatever came her way. He had shown her that strength wasn't just about what you could do on your own, it was about what you could accomplish. When you allowed others in, when you trusted them to walk with you, the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the garden. Zara leaned back against the stone bench, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She felt a sense of peace settle over her that she hadn't known in years. For the first time, she didn't feel the need to prove anything. She didn't need to be the perfect warrior, the unshakable leader. She just needed to be herself. Lucas stood up and stretched, a grin on his face. It's getting late. Want to take a walk around the palace? I promise. No more deep talks about trust for now. Zara laughed softly, feeling lighter than she had in a long time. I think I could use a walk. They walked side by side, talking about everything and nothing. The simple act of their companionship filling the air with a quiet joy. As they moved through the halls of the palace, Zara realized that she didn't need to be afraid of change. She didn't need to hold on so tightly to the past. With Lucas, she could move forward one step at a time, into a future where strength and trust went hand in hand. For the first time in her life, Zara felt like she was ready to embrace what came next. And she knew, without a doubt, that whatever the future held, it would be much brighter with Lucas by her side.